Hello, welcome to another edition of embryology discussion and study. And in our session today, we are about to see certain changes which happen in the first week of embryonic development, leading to further progression to the formation of what is called a germ disc. Towards the formation of the bilaminar germ disc, it says. Of course, it also says in the journey from the blastocyst to the trilaminar germ disc. Let's first get to know what happens when the blastocyst develops further. We've already seen the blastocyst, and we should remember the blastocyst with further development will give rise to the tissues and organs of the embryo proper, and also to structures that will support the embryo and provide nutrition to it. So on one side, organs, tissues of the embryo. On the other side, whatever that goes to support the embryo and provide nutrition to it. Now we said something called the germ disc. What is this germ disc? Before going to the definition of the germ disc, let's say what the germ layers are. To understand the germ layers, let us get to adult anatomy. This is a kind of a cross-section of the adult that you find here. The body cut on the horizontal plane. The body cut like that to an upper part and a lower part. Somewhere in the horizontal level, we see this kind of a structure. We are able to identify some parts, isn't it? Now, we've tried to take a section. What picture you see here, the illustration, is that of a cross-section of the human body. The human body has been cut on the horizontal plane, and here is a cross-sectional picture. You may be able to identify some of the structures here. You find the vertebral column, and here you find the liver tissue, and then here you find the gut system, the peritoneal cavity, and so on, the spleen here, right? Now, we're not interested in the inner details, but there is some kind of a basic three-layered pattern when we study this cross-section. I've given the smaller sized illustration of the same here and superimposition of the three layers. Now what you find is the green layer. Just for us to understand, some deliberate spacing is done. In other words, the outer external cover, that is indicated by the green layer here. So let's say the external cover or the external covering of the body. The covering could be skin and some structures associated with the skin, probably a little musculature, all that. Let's say one layer of covering. And then most internally, you find this silver shaded, silver lined area, right? That covers the liver, the gut system. So, a kind of an internal tubular structure. Though here the liver is, kind of firm tissue, you must understand the entire gut system is a kind of a tubular structure. So, most internally is one tubular structure, and most externally is another tube which is covering the entire body. So if we try and visualize, it is one tube internally, the gut system, and then another tube externally, the body's covering. So you have one tube and another outer tube. In other words, one inner tube inside the outer tube. So, if we go back here, let's say this is the inner tube and this green shaded area is the outer tube. Now, between these tubes is yet another zone. Now, between the green line and the silver line is another zone where you have other structures of the body. So, basically, the body can be described to be three concentric cylinders. The innermost cylinder, and surrounding that is another cylinder of tissue, and still surrounding that is another cylinder of tissue which covers the body. So, an external covering, an internal tube, and between the external covering and the internal tube, an intermediary zone which has several structures. So, this kind of a basic three-layered pattern or a basic three concentric cylinders pattern. These three layers, externalmost, innermost, and in between. So, these three layers are formed in the embryo itself, and that is what we will see in the trilaminar germ disc. Trilaminar will mean three layers, and germ disc. We know germ is a term given to indicate things appear from this, right? A germ cell is the rudimentary cell of seeding. From this seed appears everything. So, similar to that, germ layer. From this layer appear structures which are descendants of this layer. So, these three layers are called the three germ layers, trilaminar germ disc.